I'd like to call the Plan Commission for the City of Muskego to order at 6:01 on Tuesday, February 3rd. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Commissioner Graff.
Here.
Commissioner Kubaki is absent. Alderman Madden.
Here.
Commissioner Cieslak.
Here.
Commissioner Buckmaster absent. Commissioner Bartlett.
Here.
Then we have Alderman Hamel stepping in for the mayor. And Planner Tresmitowski.
Here.
Statement of public notice.
The agenda was posted and distributed to all news media requesting notification in accordance with the open meeting laws on Friday, January 30th.
Approval of minutes from the meeting on December 2nd, 2025.
Move to approve. I will second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Public hearing.
So one thing on the public hearing, there's two public hearings that you guys see on the agenda tonight. The first one, which we read in a minute, is at W207 South 8686 Hellendale, which is the Parfry property. The second one, so if you want to speak in the first one, you'll speak first, and once that is closed, the second hearing is at W208 S8861 Hellendale, which is for the Rojo property. So depending on if you have questions about one or both or either or the other, just make sure that the Parfry one is first and the Rojo one is second, after the regular.
If anyone that wishes to speak on the first public hearing for a conditional use grant in accordance with the Muskego zoning ordinance for the purpose of allowing a guest house located at W207 South 8686 Hellendale Drive. Is this it here?
So whoever wants to speak on this.
Whoever would like to speak, come on up. State your name and address. Facebook.
Marie Epus, West 207, South 8602, Hillendale Drive. Okay, just one main concern is the probability of our neighbor, we share the shared pond. So questions, concerns about the high probability of unknown number of guests that will be utilizing our shared pond for the activities such as boating or fishing. Our concern is the liability we hold with this increased activity. The type, if it's, Airbnb type style renting, if it's, just the number of guests, kind of what our either say is, if we put conditions in on that, or it's our understanding, like insurance policies, we can do like a shared liability insurance policy, but sadly that protects us, but it's not a guarantee. So I just hold major concern if there's a risk of injury during these activities with guests being property owner as well. So that's what I'd like to touch on today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I first wanted to, I wrote a formal.
Just state your name and address, please. That's great.
Miranda Baszler, W207, South 8580, Hillendale Drive. And I wrote a formal written objection, but I also wanted to speak, so I don't know if it's for.
You can hand us a copy now and read it.
I wrote a couple copies.
Okay.
So I just want to start off by saying our objection is not based on assumptions about personal intent. It's based on design, scale, cumulative impact, and enforceability, which is the factors that we're asking or that the city should evaluate. And that this request is being presented as a guest house is my understanding. And however, However, my understanding is that the ask is conditional use be evaluated in the context of the entire property, not just the standalone building or structure. Today, there already has a fully remodeled primary residence with multiple bedrooms and bathrooms. And it's also my understanding that recently a very large pole building with significant open interior space, sports courts, and public style restrooms was approved by the city. So the proposed guest house would be in addition to those structures, and the proposed guest house is over 6,500 square feet with the possibility of having over 6 bedrooms, an identified owner's suite, multiple mechanical rooms, and large gathering areas. When viewed collectively, this level of development represents a significant increase in occupancy capacity and its use intensity that goes well beyond what is customary for accessory residential use in an agricultural district. It is my understanding that under Muskego zoning code, a guest house must be an accessory and subordinate to the principal residence. And it must never be rented. So that's one of the things we want to have answered as well. The design and scale of this structure raises reasonable question as to whether it's truly subordinate to function or whether it enables uses the cities would have difficulty monitoring and enforcing once it's constructed. Even if the stated intent is residential, conditional use decisions should be based on what the structure enables, not simply what it is called. Once approved and built, enforcement becomes compliant driven, placing neighbors in the position of monitoring activity rather than the city. This is not how my understanding conditional use oversight is intended to function. Additionally, this property is adjacent to shared natural features. The increased occupancy and frequent visitors increase the liability exposure, safety risks, and the likelihood of unauthorized use of our deeded shared water resources. Impacts that are predictable, not speculative. Finally, agricultural zoning exists to limit the intensity and preserve rural character. Approving a guest house of this scale when combined with the multiple other large accessory structures sets a precedent that's inconsistent with the intent of the district and difficult to reverse. I do have a few questions that I'd like to pose to have answered. I don't know if that's okay.
Yeah, you can pose them, and then when we get to this item on the agenda, we can answer this.
So one of the questions we have is, can the owners clarify the maximum number of overnight occupants the guest house is designed to accommodate, and how the number compares to the primary residence, and also the purpose of the owner's suite in the guest house? We would also like to know how the city will determine whether the accessory structure remains subordinate when it exceeds the size and bedroom count of the single-family primary home. We also would like to know, in future use exceeds what is typical for residential guest housing, what specific enforcement will the city rely on, and how would those be monitored without ongoing complaints from neighbors? And we also want to know if the council is evaluating the structure independently or as part of the total development footprint and occupancy capacity of the entire property. And then I'll just say my closing. From what we're being told, we understand that it's potentially intended for family use. However, conditional use decisions are not based solely on stated intent. They're based on whether the design, scale, and layout of the structure enables uses that are compatible with the zoning district and enforceable by the city over time. A structure designed to accommodate large groups does not become less impactful because its initial use is described as family only. Once built, the city must rely on physical characteristics and enforceable conditions, not future assurances to ensure compliance. My concern is not only who uses the building today, but whether the city can confidently ensure that the use remains consistent with accessory residential standards over the life of the structure. So for those reasons, I'm respectfully asking the council to evaluate this request based on the total site capacity, cumulative impact, and enforceability, and to deny the conditional use in those if those standards cannot be clearly met.
Thank you.
James Basler, W207, South 8580 Hillendale. I just have some questions for you. Can you clearly define how the city should distinguish the structure from being an event or a community building? What is the maximum number of people, as she said, in the given, any given structure at one time? Are there any features such as large open spaces, seating capacity, and amenities that would encourage group events? How many vehicles do you anticipate on property during peak use? Has any traffic analysis been conducted for this proposal? All the extra stuff. How would the emergency vehicles access and be maintained during these periods of higher use? How will the city be able to distinguish private guests from public community use after approval? If neighbors observe frequent large gatherings, how does the city plan to enforce? And what prevents similar structures from being requested by others if this is approved? That is all I have.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on the first public hearing? I'd like to close the first public hearing and then go to the second public hearing for a conditional use grant in accordance with the Muskego zoning ordinance for the purpose of allowing a guest house located at W208 South 8861 Hillendale Drive. Is there anybody that would like to speak on that one? We're seeing nobody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There's
Two people have.
Two people have signed up,
Do you
so-
want to speak?
Those are the applicants.
Oh, those are the applicants. Did you want to speak at all?
I'm the applicant, I'm happy to speak if you'd like me to,
If you wish.
Only if you want to.
but if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions.
They can, you can speak once we get to the topic items as an applicant, so you don't have to say anything right now if you don't need to. So.
Yeah. Hereby close the second public hearing for the conditional use grant and move on to new business for consideration. Resolution PC 001-2026, approval of a building, site, and operation plan and conditional use grant for the Richard and Julie Parfrey located at W207 South 8686 Hillendale Drive.
Move to approve.
All right. So this item, which was part of the first public hearing, I'll kind of give a summary, try to answer as many of the questions as I can as part of this. So the request is for a guest house. So the way guest houses work, guest houses do not have to be the existing home. There are guest houses all over the city. Most times that they exist, most people don't even know they exist for the sake of they're usually on larger properties. And often people tend to even be on separate lots. So the idea of a guest house being that the new house is a guest house, and this actually applies to both of the guest houses that are on this agenda tonight. The new home that's being proposed is being requested to be the primary residence, which is common in most of our city's guest house approvals, and that the structure that's going to become the guest home are the existing homes. So in most cases, the primary home, which in the case of both of these two requests, is the larger structure of the property, will be the case in this scenario, because both properties, Parfrey's and Rojo, the new structure is going to be the primary residence once it's complete. And that's when the secondary structure, which are both of the existing homes, become the guest house. So I think that covers some of the questions there, that the guest houses will be smaller than secondary. Now the code does not require that the guest house be smaller than the main home. The code only identifies the minimum square footage, which is actually greater than we even require. If someone wanted to build a single family home today, they can build a single family home on any lot in the city that's zoned for single family at 1,100 square feet. That's the minimum any home has to meet. A guest house already has to exceed that 1,200. A lot of times guest houses and in-law suites are used interchangeably or get get confused. In-law suites, we make them small. Guest houses, the way the ordinance looks at them, is encourage them to be a little bit bigger. They don't want something too tiny. We don't allow a tiny home or anything on a property. So you will have the guest houses being smaller than the main homes in both of these once the projects are all said and done. The key is there is no maximum size of the guest house. If someone wanted to come into the city for 12,000 square foot guest house, if it met all the other criteria, we'd allow it. So as far as the approval goes, there are 3 buildings that will be proposed on the Parfrey property. The existing home that's there today, which will ultimately become the guest house. There is the new home that's proposed that will become the primary residence. And on this property, there was recently approved at, I think it was our last meeting, an outbuilding that has like indoor sports court and stuff like that in it, and that outbuilding will also be on the property. There's no maximum square footage for all the combined properties, for all the combined buildings, excuse me. So they are allowed 3 buildings on site, and there is no size limitation to those as long as they meet open space, floor area ratio, setbacks and offsets, which they do propose to meet in this scenario. As far as some of the restrictions go, as far as use and things like that, we'll start with lot size. So the lots are 14 acres in size. So from a standpoint of spreading 3 buildings, even of their stature, on a 14-acre property is pretty significant property size for the 3 buildings. The proposed home, let's see here. The proposed home, like I said, is almost double the square footage of the existing home, which the existing home will become the guest house. And that does meet or exceed the 1,200 square foot minimum requirement identified in the ordinance. They are trying to color coordinate the structures. I think there's going to be some renovations, possibly to the existing building, the existing home, but there is going to be a general color coordination. In the packet was provided some illustrations of kind of how the buildings will match. That is not something required by ordinance, but it is something they're talking about doing here. Guest houses are not allowed to be rented or leased, so that is in the ordinance. And along with every conditional use grant, there actually is a document that is prepared by the city that gets signed by the city and an applicant. And that document gets recorded with the Walsh County Register of Deeds. So it's tied to the deed and title of the property. So any conditions of approval, which all the conditions in the resolution that would approve a guest house or any property, get tied to that conditional use grant. So there is a real estate restriction arguably on the property, helping to solidify that not only does the code say it can't be rented or leased, there's a recorded restriction against the property stating it can't be rented or leased. The guest homes cannot be used as any kind of short-term rental. There was a question about Airbnb. Now, the licensing for short-term rentals is something that's completely outside of this board. It's handled by our clerk's office, and there's a whole ordinance relating to short-term rentals. But because the ordinance says that a guest house can't be rented or leased, by definition then, it can't be a short-term rental. So that's one of the items that we have already covered in the short-term rental ordinance that overlaps with this to provide those protections. But it is stated in the resolution supplemented by the applicants that the house will not be rented, leased, or otherwise used for any kind of income-producing purpose or commercial purpose. As we talked about with the different sizes of the homes, the city has, for any single-family construction, and these are 2 single-family homes, the guest house and the main home, there's no restriction for the city for how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, square footage of spaces. We have homes that are larger than these, we have homes that are smaller than these in the city. There's nothing in the ordinance that would give the planning commission the ability to say we're not going to allow it because of the bedroom count or because of the square footage or anything like that. That would be beyond the requirements of what we're allowed to look at. Conditional use grant law is real specific on what we can look at, and it has to be things that are identified in the ordinance. So as we mentioned, 2 houses, 1 primary, 1 guest house, 1 outbuilding on the property. The applicants have definitely stated, and it's in the resolution, which is a controlling document and will be recorded with the conditional use grant. That's for private, social use amongst family and friends. There's no public access, no public memberships, no rentals or leases, no commercial activity of any kind will be tied to this property. And the planning commission cannot make a decision based on speculation of what could happen when there's no indicators that something malicious or negative could happen. The way that the plans are presented in staff size follow the intent of the ordinance, and as such, staff is recommending approval of the guest house. Now, going back to some of the questions that were brought up, obviously some of them I covered there. The city doesn't have the ability to look at design or style. We don't have architectural requirements for a guest house. It's a minimum size, is the only controlling factor when it comes to the size of that building. Regarding the existing buildings that have been approved, yes, they have been in fact approved. It cannot be rented, and that's, like I said, covered by the conditional use grant and the resolution. As far as any kind of liability questions, that is something that is outside the purview of the city. If someone has a concern about a feature that's tied or on their property or liability, that is something they should be talking to their insurance company about. The city has no ability to get involved in that, as the city does not regulate any kind of water features in the sense of how people use them. The city has never been able to ask anything related to capacity of a private single-family residence or occupancy. There is nothing in ordinance that regulates cars, as long as you're not parked on a lawn. That's the only regulatory thing when it comes to cars. Cars in the ordinance or vehicles on a property are allowed to be there as long as they're for the residents or the residents' guests. They cannot be parked on lawns. So if cars are parked on a lawn, that would become an issue. As long as they're on an approved, permitted hardscape surface, there is not a specific vehicle capacity limit identified in the ordinance. As far as traffic analysis goes, no, we would not have a traffic analysis for a single-family property with a guest home. As far as the large gatherings go, public versus private use, like I said, the applicant has stated how they're intending to use it. We reiterate how they're going to use it. We have no reason to believe or assume that they have any intent other than what has been submitted.
Thanks, Adam. Any discussion for us? Any questions?
I have one. Adam, why would this become a public hearing? If you went through all of the check boxes and they're all checked positively to the applicant, why would this become a public hearing?
So ordinances in any community are going to have uses allowed by right, uses allowed under what's called accessory use, and uses allowed by conditional use grant. It's so conditional use grants, any community, every community is different, no communities are exactly alike, choose if they want any items as conditional use grant. They choose if they want many items as conditional use grants. So in the city zoning ordinance, it talks about guest houses. If anyone wants a guest house, they have to go through the conditional use grant process, which what we're doing here. As part of that process, one of the things that we feel gives it a lot more teeth is that document that gets recorded against the property. Like I said, staff will prepare the conditional use grant. All conditional use grants in Muskego are uniquely numbered. They're available to register deeds. We hold them in our office, but they get recorded against the property. So whether this changes hands, whether there's issues or problems, whether there's 5 owners down the road, it sticks with the property. Until someone requests to remove it, it sticks with the property. So even if they were to change hands, the new owner will still be allowed to use it as a guest house. But that real estate restriction is going to state guest house only. If a new owner wants to buy it and rent it out, that real estate restriction is going to prohibit that from happening.
Okay, very good.
Any other?
One thing I guess I'll comment is, if someone wants to do something illegal, and I don't believe that any of the applicants tonight have that intention, but if they do, the city and our ordinance is really clear on this. We are a complaint-driven system city, meaning we do not drive around looking for problems. Many of the problems find their way to us on their own. If anyone has solid evidence, that we will follow up on any complaint made to an elected official. Any complaints have to, number one, go through the elected official first. Staff cannot take a complaint like that directly. And once it goes to the elected official, then they might do some due diligence and they pass it to us. So if there's any concern that anything has been done incorrectly, as long as there's staff data behind it, we will follow up on any of them that we have the ability to, working with the alderman of the district.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor of resolution PC 001 2026, say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Passes unanimously. I did.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Resolution PC 002 2026, approval of a building, site and operation plan and conditional use grant for Manuel Rojo located at W208 South 8861 Hillendale Drive.
I will approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Give me 1 second.
Oops, I'm sorry.
Here, sorry. I'll get the details all over here. Okay, so this is an existing property. It is located just near the first one, just across the street, down the road a little bit. This property currently contains one existing farm home as well as a couple different outbuildings. The new proposal is to build a new home. The new home will become the primary residence. And once that's completed, then the secondary or guest house home the existing home will become the guest house. The outbuildings are proposed to remain. There's a handful of farm buildings on this property. The same requirements are required to be met, that it must be on a property of at least 120,000 square feet, cannot be rented or leased, and must be a minimum of 1,200 square feet in size. Sorry, let's get to the page. All right, so as it relates to the property itself, the primary home is almost triple the size of the guest house. The guest house itself is about 2,400 square feet, some change. The main home with all the finished living spaces is closer to the 7,000 square foot range. The lot itself is more than double the required minimum lot size at about 245,000 square feet, which is one of the checks that is required by the ordinance. Once the new home would be constructed, the petitioner would be doing some renovations to the existing home to help it match the new build. The guest house has been stated as being used by friends or family when they're visiting from out of state or out of town. The building cannot be used for any commercial, rental, or lease purposes or any kind of passive storage. And this property would be the same as the previous, where there will be a recorded conditional use grant signed by the city and the owner that does get recorded against the property. That will then stick with the property. That will outline all the conditions that are listed in the Planning Commission resolution. Staff is recommending approval.
Any discussion?
I just had one maybe question on this one. So we've approved many of these types of applications in the past, as stated earlier. Usually they're using like a shared driveway or shared access, and I realize that some roads are county regulated, and as such they can't get access. On this one particularly, it has its own driveway. Could you speak a little bit to that, Adam, as to what the regulations are for that?
Sure. So on a city road, which this road is, the city does not restrict access points. So if this was just a homeowner that came into us and said, hey, I want to do a horseshoe driveway, I want to do multiple access points, there's nothing in the city ordinance that regulates access onto a city road. If it were a county or state or federal road, then that would be a different story. But for the city, we typically don't. So there's no limit to how many culverts a driveway can, or a property can have. Obviously, if the Planning Commission had a concern with it being separate, that could be a condition of approval. But there isn't anything in the ordinance that would prohibit it. So an example, in this case, I'm looking at the map here. If they were to come into us at some point and just say, I want another driveway because I want to put an outbuilding over there, they could do so, and we would have no reason to deny them an access permit.
Adam, I have a quick question.
This is a public hearing, we can't.
Sorry. Okay.
Any other comments or discussion? All those in favor of resolution PC 002-2026, say aye. Aye. Those against? Passes unanimously. Resolution PC 003-2026, approval of a building site and operation plan for Inpro located on a vacant parcel at the northwest corner of Mercury Drive and Saturn Drive.
I will second.
So this proposal here is for the Inpro Corporation. As you know, they have a couple different buildings, numerous different buildings in the Muskego Business Park across Racine Avenue. In that park, they have purchased a few different properties. This one is a vacant property that they currently own. They're looking at building a new 30,000 square foot building to kind of continue to expand their operations of the company, keeping within the park. So there's currently a building that's just east of this property. Some of the uses that are in that space are going to kind of migrate to this building as they're growing and busting at the seams in that building. So they will be very kind of similar uses. Predominantly, this space will have an area of office space, which is kind of a lower single-story profile building. And then to the west of that will be a larger warehouse structure. That warehouse structure We'll definitely have truck docks face the south, and then the east part of the building is where the office is, and that's the predominant area for employee parking. So the building could be operating Monday through Friday, 24 hours a day with 3 shifts with some limited weekend hours. As far as the use goes, the use is allowed in that park as it's a manufacturing, warehousing uses, both uses which are allowed in that business park. Architecturally, it is governed by the city's general design guide. They are proposing the building to be precast masonry panels, kind of using traditional in-pro colors that we've seen. There's different colors of gray, you'll see some stripes of blue, which has kind of become known here as the in-pro blue. Then you'll see that kind of ties a lot of their buildings together, kind of helps identify that uniqueness of that company in the park. So the buildings themselves, staff has no issues with it all. I think it's a good looking building. They have some canopy features over some of the doors. There are some window features, like I said, having a little office corner kind of softens that corner up a little bit on the property. As far as the rest of the building goes, the southern side, which faces Mercury Drive, is where they'll have the 7 overhead doors. 6 of them will be in the sunken truck dock. One of them is a grade access. 6 of the overhead doors appear to be a darker color, kind of matching the wall color. As far as the overall design of the building goes with the docks, ideally we try to keep docks out of public view wherever possible. Given the size of the site, there's only certain limitations of what you can do with the docks. So they are facing southward, facing the road. They have provided us some diagrams showing where a vehicle or truck would be when it would be parked there, and it would encroach a little bit into the right of way when parked, but nowhere near the drive aisle, that's our biggest concern. Typically, trucks aren't sitting in these areas for extremely large periods of time as they're usually actively loading or unloading. So staff does not foresee any issues with that. They do show the westernmost truck dock being one of the recessed ones, housing a compactor. Ideally, we'd like to have those things screened, but being that it is kind of in the truck dock area, we're a little limited what can happen here. So one of the things the applicant has proposed is doing some arborvitae's on the west side of that compactor. We think that's a good step in the right direction, but one of the conditions in the resolution is adding some additional landscaping on that west side just to kind of break it up or soften it a little bit where we can. There's not really much you can do because this large compactor does get taken away and emptied on the south or east sides. As far as the building goes, it meets setbacks and offsets in the M2 district. It is within the height limit. The building's about 34 feet, height limit is 35 for this district, so it's within the height allowance. They are showing about 30 parking stalls on site. Based upon the needs on the square footage of the office area and the warehouse area, it appears they should have enough parking on site given the employee counts they gave us amongst the 3 shifts. One nice thing here, and this is what Impro has done on a lot of their sites, is that they do need parking at different times of the day because they do have that site adjacent to the east. Both the sites can kind of share parking. That's not an uncommon practice that we see in the park when users, especially Impro, have multiple buildings. It's kind of a sharing of parking, but it does appear that based on the quantities of employees they told us, there should be enough parking on site. The parking does meet all the setback requirements. One of the questions or comments that came up when we met them originally was having curbing in the parking lot, as we typically require in new buildings. They have curb and gutter the predominant parking area, so we want to thank them for that. They do show 2 areas where they show curbing being omitted for snow plowing. One of the things that staff just wanted to mention to the plan, but we're not necessarily recommending a change, we want to throw out there is often what might be done in some of these areas is rather than omitting the curbing, you might have like a low profile onto a curb. City Hall has that in our parking lot, for example. So you still have the uniformity of the curb, it's just recessed and cut down so you can easily plow over it. Planning Commission is not, we do not have that in the resolution as a requirement, but if the Planning Commission wanted to consider that, they could add that into the resolution. As far as the rest of the building goes, there are mechanicals on the roof that they are proposing screening. The screening right now, though, didn't appear to screen the west sides of the units. We do want to make sure that these are screened on all 4 sides because you will see this building coming down numerous different roads given where it's located. So we will need to be sure that all 4 sides of all units are screened unless they can show us with vision diagrams that from no place in the park they're visible. That's something we're going to do standard at any new construction buildings or any buildings with new additions. Other than that, they meet the bulk of the code requirements, as far as things like fire department approval, that will be pending. Civil design and stormwater is being proposed, but that will be reviewed by our engineers as this project proceeds forward. They do show preliminary landscape plans this time, but we'll do formal landscape plan review at time of permitting. The only comment we had preliminarily on landscaping though was some additional landscaping on that west side, and specifically in the area of the dumpster, proceeding a little bit forward of it. Other than that, staff is recommending approval. We think this will be a nice addition for the park. And I'm here to answer any questions for the planning commission, otherwise we are recommending approval.
Any discussion or questions, comments?
Sorry about that. So I, like the design, looks great. The one minor comment I had, I saw in the resolution that it mentioned the rooftop, but I didn't see adding the screening for the side as part of the conditions.
So we could, well, let me pull it up here. So what we have is kind of a standard note that says all rooftop and ground mechanicals, and then references including HVAC devices must be completely screened from view. So to me, that's all view. That kind of covers the general. That's what we can add specifically. If we want to just give ourselves a little more comfort, we can definitely add a clarifying bead for the result that clarifies on all four sides. Like I said, I don't think that with the view diagram, because we have some projects that you're limited where you can see the building from. Here, the road goes west, the road goes east, it goes north and south. I don't see how there's any way you won't see it from all four sides.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. I think it's fine. I mean, we've covered it here, as a public discussion.
And we can definitely add it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll make a motion to add that fourth side to the
If that's the intent, I think it's reasonable to add it.
So that's my motion.
Your
I'll second.
second. All those in favor of the motion that's been, how it's been presented? Aye. Those against? Passes unanimously. Now,
So that was just motion to
Yep,
amend it.
yeah, now on to the full approval as amended, Resolution PC 003-2026. Approval of building site and operation plan for Impro as amended.
Aye.
Those against? Passes unanimously. Resolution PC 004-2026, approval of a building site and operation plan amendment for the Shell Convenience Store and Car Wash located at South 76 West 17871 and South 76 West 17857 Janesville Road.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
So this is the former Johnny's Petroleum site, now which is the Shell station here, and the gas station and their car wash and the canopies are kind of going through a rebrand, obviously with new ownership and the rebrand of the site, and going with the Shell logos and Shell colors. Historically, the planning staff, when someone's doing something that just relates to the canopy, staff has typically been the one approving as with the canopy is more so signage. So we have already previously approved the typical like white and yellow and red for the Shell on the canopy. Now they're making those some changes to the buildings, and so that's why we brought this forward to the Planning Commission. So you'll see in the application that they have, right now on the top of the building, I think it was previously like a red band on the top of the former Johnny's, where now they're kind of doing a band that has colors with the food bar on it that's wrapping the two sides of the building and the front of the building. It doesn't wrap the back, as there's no need for the back, just to kind of keep with that logo. That will help keep the theme and match the logoing that you see on the canopies. And then when you start going over to the car wash building, the car wash building too used to have like a large red canopy on the front of it, which has recently got removed. What they're talking about doing there is doing that same banding to kind of tie the canopies of the building together to show that consistency on site with the logo car wash name. Excuse me, on the front there. And then the sides of the building aren't gonna have any formal logos or stripes, but there are some existing color bands painted onto the building. They're gonna paint those to match the same red band color to kind of give those two sides of the building the same consistency that you would see on the main structure. So this is really kind of just to clean up with the new branding. Typically, the Planning Commission staff hasn't had an issue with branding, but anytime they start changing major colors and stuff or design features on a building, we bring it to the plan commission just to be sure that there aren't any concerns, and hence why this is here today. The only kind of unique condition in the resolution, which isn't even that unique, is just that those red stripes that will be painted on the sides and stuff of the car wash are gonna match the metal panels that need to be painted within 6 months of the approval, just to make sure that we're not here years later and they haven't completed it all. Otherwise, staff is recommending approval.
Any discussion?
Is that everything on the property then? That's good?
Yeah, there's the 2 canopies, which have already been done, the main building and the car wash building.
Okay.
I just have a couple questions. So is the, kind of the picture of the front of the building where you're putting the signage, it looks like the coping on top is getting painted. Is that the same for all 4 sides of the building as well?
So this,
Same the color?
if you look at like the aerial photo of this building, you'll see this building has been added on to a ton over the years. So you can see just by like the roof lines, there's different features. So from like this corner of the building, when you look at, for example, this photo that you see here, everything you're gonna see from that view is being done. So they're not wrapping the back, because the back literally faces the private storage yard. So that would kind of be the east, the east, and then the north facing is where the food mart is on the main building. And then when it wraps on kind of the west side, there's a small section of building that is gonna wrap, but then it transitions into a larger garage door that's there because there's like an addition of a garage structure. I'm not sure how it's currently used. I know they used to have a fuel truck parked in there, maybe they still do. We aren't wrapping under that because that really looks like a different part of the building and it's kind of set back more. They're really just doing this design to the area of like the main convenience store. So I definitely feel it's an appropriate application given kind of how the existing building is laid out, and this building here, you can kind of see the difference out of this recessed garage structure in the back. That's the area that they're not transitioning into, because that's not part of the convenience store.
Okay. So the car wash, kind of same question, like, the front elevation of the car wash, and they have the new signage. It looks like they kind of painted the coping, I guess, a white color, but on the other sides, is it gonna be painted that white color, is it?
Yeah, I think our goal in the end is consistency on all sides. If you look at, I think, this front drawing, the next drawing shows the rear, which is gonna have, basically on the rear is gonna be the bands that are repainted to match the new red color. And then I believe the last picture, is for the side. The side is gonna stay that kind of whitish tone that's out there, just kind of get cleaned up, and then those colored stripes are gonna match that same red that's used on the rest of the buildings.
The other question I had, in the application, it says that signage, the new kind of shell kind of signage thing is only about 23 inches tall, which is about 3 blocks tall, right? Which kind of fits between those 2 stripes, upper. Is it truly gonna be as big as it kind of shows here? Because that looks like it's gonna be, probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 courses tall.
So what's gonna take precedence is the physical measurement, not a graphic drawing. These drawings are okay, but they're not ideal. It was the best we could get from the applicant. Aaron will review these from the sign permit aspect, and the normal limitation, which is 5% of each elevation, will apply. So they are allowed to go up to that 5%, but what's gonna really dominate is not what the picture looks like, it's gonna be what a physical number is. So, Aaron, did you have like specs on the signs for these areas or anything,
I think they're
We've been working with them for a while, and it was part of it. It's kind of a sign thing, but then kind of a facade thing, and it was kind of this mix and a match of them. So I guess the best I can answer is, because usually the plan commission doesn't regulate signage as long as it's within the 5% allowance, and we will make sure they're full to the 5% allowance. They're not allowed to exceed that, we're not allowed to grant them any larger.
Yeah, it's just this picture, if the.
Are you talking about one like the front of the car wash?
Yeah, specifically the elevation, where it says like, in the application, he said it was gonna be a 23-inch kind of metal band that was gonna go there, which is, if you kind of look at the elevations, 1 block course is about 8 inches, so it's gonna be about as tall as 3 courses of that block, which kind of fits between the 2 bands, I guess I'll say, two upper red bands. It just looks so dominating in this picture, I don't think it's gonna be that big, so it's.
They're saying 23 inches, which I paused on that. To see that part, then that would, if we want, we can.
It might be a smaller band that I guess works kind of.
Yeah, like I said, I think this is kind of a attempt at a rendering for this. What's really gonna matter at the end is the real size they propose, and that's 5% allowance.
Okay.
what we're required to hold to.
And the current red bands are gone on the car wash.
They are staying, they're gonna repaint them on the sides to match the current red.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, right now they're kind of a maroon.
yeah, and they're kind of worn out, and that's one of the big things that, one thing we're gonna kind of talk to them in general about, is just kind of, I think the ability to do good clean, good pressure wash on it, so that means it needs full painting, something that's intended, just needs some TLC.
I would like to see if possible, you know, it seems like in the other building, they painted the coping on top kind of white to kind of match the banding of the signage, which I think looks nice. I would kind of like to see that here as well, you know, to.
So then so like if we look at like, let's call it the back or the sides of the car wash, right now, the top of that coping is red.
Yeah.
So your suggestion would be still keeping the two low red bands, but making the coping white to match the main structure?
Exactly.
I think
Kind
we
of
could-
tie those in together.
Yeah, I think we could definitely
Yeah.
make an amendment to add that in to ensure that that happens if you'd like.
We need a official amendment on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I moved to add the coping around the entire building.
The white coping,
The white coping, yeah, to kind of match the main building, treatment that they've done.
and keep the two lower red bands though.
Yeah,
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the amendment as proposed? Aye. Any other discussion?
If I may. The only other thing I'd like to point out, and this is not, it's not meant to be any sort of snarky comment or anything like that, just that obviously it's grandfathered in, if there's an ice machine out there, it does not match the building color. And this ties into previous and past discussions about how we handle these types of things. So, I'm not calling attention, I'm not making a motion tonight to change anything, but I just want to call attention to our board, consistency.
And I remember when this was Johnny, years back, way before our recent called ice bin, kind of policies, we did approach a handful of gas stations, because there was like one gas station that complained about others, and there were certain ones that we had to, kind of inventory them all, and certain ones had certain things they weren't supposed to. There was something in this one that was in a really, really old approval. I don't remember the ins and outs of it. It's back when my predecessor was here, but I remember working with him on it, that the owners at the time brought up to us that caused us to say, yes, you're allowed to be there because of something granted in the past. That doesn't mean that if I wish to change that now, it could, but that was something that came up on this site specific related to an old approval. I don't remember the ins and outs of it exactly.
I'm not looking to impose undue hardship on people, and I'll leave it there.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of resolution PC 004-2026 as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Passes unanimously.
We voted on the amendment right here, and I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to say that, sorry.
I know we've missed that before, Council.
One thing on the miscellaneous I just wanted to quickly mention is I think you guys saw the plan commission members relating to the upcoming comprehensive 2035 comprehensive plan update. So I think all of you should have received an email a while ago now, last month at least, if not 2 months ago, or I think it was in December, which is a copy of the plan. If you haven't had a chance to look at it yet, it's available on the website. I think it was in the link I sent. We have them in our office and in the library. Please take a peek at it. You guys, as plan commission members, will have review over that. That kind of relates to the other email I sent related to a March meeting. Normally our March meeting is scheduled for March 3rd. But due to the statutory requirements and we're trying to get the comp plan approved and stuff, we're tentatively moving the plan commission date to the 11th of March. That's been kind of on the preliminary time schedule that we provided to the council for approval of the comp plan. There have been some questions I've gotten from some applicants regarding, do we still try to have a meeting on the 3rd, maybe for non-comp plan items, and just do the comp plan stuff on the 11th? That's something, I guess, depending on what kind of interest and what kind of stuff gets submitted to us, maybe I'll be reaching out to the planning commission to kind of talk about that ahead of time, but just wanted get a heads up on that. I'm not looking for any feedback yet, just because I don't know if that's going to be necessary. The 11th is going to happen for sure. It's just a question of do we still keep the 3rd for maybe call it other items. And as it relates to the comp plan, just to kind of keep you up to date, keep an eye out on the webpage we have set up for it, please, and we're keeping that really up to date with updates and timings. Next Wednesday, the 11th, in meeting room 1 here from 4 to 6, we are doing 4 to 6 right here. The open house. We have an open house for the comp plan, so you are more than welcome to attend that. You're not required, but it's open to anyone that would like to be there. It's not a presentation, it's not a meeting, it's very just much open house. We'll have maps out and documents and facts, just so everyone can kind of get a better look at it, ask questions, provide comments. If you have anyone that has any comments, please refer them to our office. And then it looks like the public hearing for the comp plan is tentatively March 10th. The plan commission review potentially the day after the 11th, and potential council action, doesn't have to happen then, but it can happen as soon as March 24th.
Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned at 6:51.